So what's a first plan meeting? As I said, an NDIS person will be in touch to organise this meeting. Depending on the level of complexity the assessor has allocated to the person and their application, this meeting will be held with either an NDIS planner for more complex cases or a local area coordinator for less complex cases. Remember to reassure the participant that this is good news, that they've got an NDIS plan, and that now you're just sorting out the details of their new supports with the NDIS. So if they haven't already, you want to encourage the person you're supporting to think about maybe 3 main goals for their life over the next 6 to 12 months. And you want to note these goals will form a big part of their first NDIS plan. And you want to use those goals to highlight their support needs that aren't being addressed by mainstream services, and then frame the goals around the supports required from the NDIS. Because later you'll want to link as many providers and as many hours as you can of NDIS supports to those goals. A common issue that we find with the people we support with these complexities is that the idea of goals is overwhelming or new to them. They've maybe spent so much time on getting the basics together in their life that the concept of having goals is foreign and even laughable for a lot of people. So you want to go slow here. Give people permission to think outside the box, and think about really what they would like, and give them permission to think about what they need and want in their life, which maybe is something that they haven't often gotten to do. And then you need to find a way to translate those aspirations into how the NDIS can support them. If the person is really unsure of their goals, there's a few things that we typically find people we support need, and therefore we'd recommend exploring these with someone if they really don't feel like they know any goals for themselves. So for example, you'll want to explore getting a recovery coach or a support coordinator, and they're like an NDIS case manager, which I imagine most of you will be familiar with. And yeah, then that person can support the participant with understanding and choosing other NDIS supports and pursuing their goals, and maybe even making a recovery plan. Our cohort typically needs support with managing a place to live, such as with support finding a new and safe place to live. They may need support with daily living, like caring for a home, tasks like cleaning and gardening, or caring for themselves. So for caring for themselves, they might need prompts for doing things like showering and looking after their hygiene, but also maybe some support with planning, purchasing and cooking healthy meals. The person may also need support for building social connections or strengthening relationships with family or friends. And they may want support with learning and education, like support starting a course or finding a job. And they may want support with being more involved in the community, like help with finding and joining local activities. So again, those goals that the person has identified should then translate into the supports you want to advocate for them getting from the NDIS, and you want to be advocating for those in the first plan meeting. So that includes the support coordinator and recovery coach. You'll also typically want to advocate for them having a plan manager, and that, if you don't know, is like the person's NDIS accountant. In terms of funding management options with the NDIS, the person can do self-managed, and that gives them more options about what providers they can use, but also more responsibility for managing all of that paperwork and all of that money. There's NDIA managed, which gives them fewer options because they can only then access NDIS registered supports, but then the NDIA manages the finances for them. Or there's plan managed, which again, as I said, is what we would advocate for them getting, and that gives them both choice over registered and unregistered providers, but it also means that they have someone to look after that paperwork and money management for them. So they'll also likely want a full OT assessment to identify ongoing support needs. They'll also want capacity building supports, especially with mental health. You're likely going to want psychology sessions for developing social interaction skills or developing ability to manage emotions in different settings. And when you're advocating for the others probably mentioned this, but when you're advocating for psychology sessions, you want to frame it in terms of their disability needs. So as I said, it's not therapy sessions that for their usual therapy, it's to help them develop skills in things like emotion management. They'll also likely need support workers for accessing community, managing a tenancy, things like paying bills, cleaning, and prompting for self-care. So as well as that, you'll also want to give them support. You want to get them support with getting to and from appointments and other things necessary for their health and necessary for their life. And for that, getting around, it's quite easy these days, we've found, to get people a transport allowance, which is quite handy because a lot of people will be on Centrelink, and the transport allowance is one of the few things that the NDIA puts directly into people's bank accounts, and they don't have to, report on how it's spent. So it's a little bit of extra pocket money, but can help them get around and access things that they need to. So finally, after that first planning meeting, the NDIA should be referring the person onto a support coordinator or recovery coach, or at least this is typically included in a plan for the complex cases that we support at Embark. So assuming that that's been included in their plan, then that referral should come through. And you want to make sure this connection happens and not let the plan sit unused. So you want to follow up with that service provider to make sure the referral is being picked up by the provider. You want to check that the provider has capacity, and you want to check that they're being proactive in supporting the person that you also support. And remember again here how overwhelming this time can be. I know I've said it a lot, but it really is true. It's a big change, and you want to continue to re-explain the process, what's happening, and the next steps to the person you support. So finally, we ensure that the person is happy with their support coordinator and or recovery coach and have maybe signed a service agreement, and that they have support to navigate their new NDIS plan.
Thanks for watching. Please check out our resources at ICLA's website, icla.org.au/embark is where our project sits, and the resources there will be quite useful. And please also be in touch with us with any questions at embark@icla.org.au. Thanks again.